Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, hosted by Rails-to-Trails Conservancy's Trail Expert Network. My name is Yvonne Mwangi, and I am the Trail Resources and Planning Manager here at Rails-to-Trails. So our topic for today is trail networks and housing stability, affordable housing development. And this is the second in our three-part webinar series exploring the relationship between trail networks, affordable housing, and property values. So this webinar is a service of our Trail Expert Network. The Trail Expert Network is a service of Rails-to-Trails, an information and learning platform for trail enthusiasts and professionals. Aside from this webinar, other services of the Trail Expert Network include an exclusive newsletter and peer-to-peer learning on our 10 Facebook group. You can join the 10 group using the link shown on your screen. It will also be copied into your chat. So with that, I hand it over to Ryan Chao. Ryan has been RTC's president since 2019, and he has previous experience as the executive director of satellite housing in the Bay Area, where he led the development of affordable housing communities throughout Northern California. So Ryan, take it away.
Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Yvonne. Welcome to the second webinar on trail networks and housing stability. As Yvonne mentioned, RTC is sponsoring this series to help our field better understand the relationship between trail development and housing values, and to identify strategies for addressing potential effects of gentrification. But perhaps most simply, this series is aimed at highlighting approaches to inclusive, proactive development so that the most people can enjoy access to and the benefits of trails. The first webinar focused on the research, on the evidence base. This one will focus on practice, on housing development. And I'm really honored to be joined by panelists from three very different parts of the country, three different markets, who've done just this, who've integrated affordable housing with trails. And we'll hear from each of them how they both serve the housing needs of their communities and how they create inclusive access to trails. So first will be Maria Gonzalez. Next slide, please. Maria is president of ASE, a nonprofit community development organization focused on economic empowerment for Philadelphia's Latino community. She heads ASE's development team, managing over 200 million of commercial and housing development projects that have contributed to the stabilization and revitalization of the Fair Hill and St. Hugh neighborhoods. Maria also serves on the Philadelphia Planning Commission, is chair of Neighborhood Funding Stream, and is board president of the Philadelphia Association of Community Development Corporations. Next slide. Following Maria will be Samantha Meyer. Samantha is project developer at Eden Housing based in Hayward, California. She joined Eden in 2020 after completing her master's degree in design and development with a focus on affordable housing policy. She is currently managing the development of multiple affordable housing communities in Northern California for low-income families, farm workers, and people at risk of homelessness. Samantha's previous work includes policy and analysis for the Los Angeles Mayor's Office of City Homelessness Initiatives and promoting accessory dwelling units for Bay Area jurisdictions. And finally, we'll be joined by Nick Mitchell-Bennett. Nick is the executive director of CDCB, Come Dream, Come Build, and the administrator of the Rio Grande Valley Multi-Bank in Brownsville, Texas. During his tenure, he has led the CDCB team in the development of over 3,000 affordable homes, raised over $75 million in public and private grant funds, and deployed over $100 million in private lending capital. At the Rio Grande Valley Multi-Bank, Nick launched the Community Loan Center, a small dollar alternative to payday lending, which has since been franchised into 22 markets across the country, resulting in over $60 million in loans. In 2015, Nick was recognized with the Texas Houser of the Year Award. Thank you all for joining us today. And Maria, please get us started.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan. I'm very excited to be here with all of you today to talk about the exciting work that ASE is doing in the Fair Hill and St. Hugh neighborhoods in Eastern North Philadelphia. Next. So a little bit about ASE. ASE is a community development corporation, 501c3 nonprofit. We were established about 40 years ago, back in 1982, to help redevelop a vacant commercial property on the commercial corridor. From there, we went on to develop comprehensive community development plans to be able to establish a roadmap and a guide for the redevelopment of our community that is focused on rebuilding the commercial corridor and also the residential areas adjacent to the commercial corridor. Everything we do is based on 10-year neighborhood plans, which are resident-led, which is very critical for us so that we can have buy-in. And also we establish priorities based on what the community wants to see in their neighborhood. From there, we also work to revitalize, as I mentioned, the commercial corridor, and also work with small businesses, medium-sized and large employers to be able to come into our neighborhood to offer goods and services and also create jobs in our community. Next. This is just an example of the recent work that we have accomplished over the last couple of years. We built our first trail along Gurney Street to be able to really brand that part of the neighborhood and retake it from all the craziness and chaos that was happening there. So if you see that photo of that heart that says return love, as a way to brand it, we commissioned some metal work and artwork to install it along the fence so that we can have some branded and also signify to the community that we're taking it over. The groundbreaking photo on the top, there was a groundbreaking in 2019. Casa Indiana, an affordable rental housing development for seniors 62 and older, was completed in June 2020, and we were able to lease it within the first 45 days after we completed it. And that's also adjacent to the trail. And back in 2018-19, we also served as a site for FEMA to be able to serve people coming from Puerto Rico that were affected by the storm. That's just a sampling of some of the work that we do. Next. Fairhill and St. Hugh, they're in Philadelphia. They're very dense urban neighborhoods. We're located almost right about, I would say about 3 miles north of Center City, the heartbeat of the whole city. Demographically, we have about 20,000 residents that live within 1 square mile. That really speaks to the dense urban neighborhood. About 85% of the population is Latino, and the majority coming from Puerto Rico. 60% speak Spanish at home. And unfortunately, another of the demographics that we have is that we have a very high poverty level. Over 50% of the people that live in our neighborhoods suffer from poverty. And also we have a high number of renters in our community as well. We have a Centro de Oro, which is one of the main commercial corridors in our district that really is a destination for arts and culture and has the largest concentration of Latino-owned businesses in Philadelphia. So we really use that as a way to be able to attract and build the surrounding community. Next. Current narrative. One of the priorities from our recent 10-year neighborhood plan, right now we're in the implementation of our third 10-year neighborhood plan, the community really rallied and we're really advocating for the cleanup of the Conrail viaduct that actually separates Fairhill and St. Hugh. This major corridor is just used by trains that are carrying goods. It's not really for passengers, but the area had become overgrown and a haven for encampments and people that were suffering from heroin addiction and opiates living there, and just created this chaos. Unfortunately, even made national news as to how this was impacting our community. ASE, along with our partners, work with the city and Conrail that manages that train corridor work together to be able to get the resources needed to clean up the viaduct, and also to fence the area so that no person can come down to that embankment and also continue to create the chaos that was there before. That was a $5 million investment that was realized in 2017. Next. And one of the things that we like to showcase is, the beauty of the arts and culture of the Latino community. Although we have many challenges in our neighborhood, we have a lot of great families that have connections to the community, that have built linkages with others, and they want to remain living in the community, and they want nothing more than any other family would. It's a decent, safe place for them to live, and also so that they can raise their children. Next. As I mentioned before, the community concerns, this is what that embankment adjacent to the rail line looked like before the cleanup in 2017. The focus for the community and their priorities was addressing the crime, addressing the conditions of the Conrail land, and also the encampments that had been set up along that area, which really affected very negatively on the quality of life for the people that live there. Next. One of the ways that we were able to tackle that work is using a strategy that's called crime prevention through environmental design, that really focus at looking at the built environment and how can we improve it, either through lighting, through building, or through safety interventions, to be able to create a safer neighborhood where we don't create opportunities, for crime to occur. So a lot of the work that we focused on since the completion of our neighborhood plan in 2016 was really to look at where we can increase lighting, where we can control access to some of the streets and some of the areas, activate public spaces so that if the space is active, there's less likely for any crime to occur or to be taken over by the criminal element. Also manage the landscaping. The Conrail viaduct was overgrown with weeds, and that creates a place for people to create those encampments, and also have more eyes on the street and have territorial enforcement. And that's where the structures or the art installations that we put along the Conrail line, that was a way for us to give, to brand the space and also to demonstrate to the community that we were taking it over for the benefit and the use of the community. Next slide. And this is some of the examples of the work that we did. This is the trail that we just created, and how we had it paved so we can have people use it either to walk, run, use their bikes. And it's clean, it's safe, and it's a way for the community to enjoy, especially since we have very few open recreational spaces in our community. Also, there are bridges that connect one part of the neighborhood over the viaduct to the other one. And then we have these bridges, and we work with mural arts in the community in order to paint them and have some type of mural designs installed on them as a way to also have the territorial enforcement, and also to tell the community that we are actually revitalizing and taking over our neighborhood. Next slide. One of the things that we did as part of the neighborhood planning process is map out those locations where we can build trails and see how we can connect to other parts and other investments that were being made throughout our neighborhood. One major investment was the American Street Greenway right in the middle of the map. where there were some green improvements that were being realized by the Department of Commerce of Philadelphia. And we actually advocated to take it a little further to cover part of our neighborhood and have some connectivity to the rail and other housing developments that we have in the area. Everything that we do is pretty much in support of the commercial corridors, as I mentioned, and you see in the light blue, El Centro de Oro and the front and Allegheny corridors. And also a lot of the housing that we plan is around that area as well, so that we can bring additional investment and also be able to create additional housing options for seniors and families as well. Next. This is one of the projects that is under development right now, which is a trail park. We bought this parcel of land, about 1.8 acres of land, that it's abutting the Conrail viaduct. As you see how it's the funny shape of it on the map. That's because that was vacant land and it's abutting that space. And that connects to the American Street Railway as well. And we're able to, and one of the things that we really focus on this development is to be able to create more open and recreational spaces for our community. And we're kind of comparing it to the piazza that's very famous in another part of Philadelphia. So it's going to be able to link the trail park via the American Street Greenway to the piazza. So we have interconnectivity between two neighborhoods. They are very much different, but they can benefit from having those connections and those opportunities for residents of both neighborhoods to intersect and also enjoy the cultural offerings that we hope to host in this area as well. Next. This is just some of the examples of the housing that we're building. The bright one with the structural elements in the front, the art elements, that is Casa Indiana, our newest senior housing development that we just completed in 2020. The one to the right on the top right-hand corner is Rafael Poratadoria. That's on El Centro de Oro Commercial District, which is only about 3 blocks west of our trail rather. And that's going to offer 30 units for persons 55 and older. And in the lower right-hand side, that's our newest project for homeownership development. Because as we're building rental housing, we also are very much focused in building homeownership housing so that people in our neighborhood have housing options and are able to buy a piece of the neighborhood. So they're least likely to be displaced because, you know, that's a real concern in our community where we have economic pressures from further south and east of us where there's a lot of gentrification. So building affordable homeownership housing is a priority for the organization. And one of the interesting ways that we are building affordability into the future is through the creation of a community land trust where we can place the land, and we have those restrictions so that we're able to preserve affordability for other families that want to locate to our neighborhood and remain there for as long as possible. Next slide. One component that ties very nicely into our CEPTED approach, the crime prevention through environmental design, is the Livability Academy, where it really works to build community leaders to work alongside ASE and other of our partner organizations, because we need people power in order for us to tackle the very complex issues that are impacting our community. So it's really critical for us to be able to build leadership at the neighborhood level so that we are able to work together and advocate for the supports that we need, and also for the priorities that come out from the grassroots level from our neighborhood. So that's really critical. To date, we have graduated about 135 people from our neighborhood, and we look to continue to offer the Livability Academy for years to come, because that's really critical for us to be able to build that leadership in the neighborhoods. Next slide. So everything that we do is to build more livable neighborhoods, which are safe and secure. It offers housing, a variety of housing, whether it's rental, home ownership, and we'll also have a thriving commercial quarter that provides jobs in the community, where we have a diverse group of people with different income levels and ethnicities, so that we can have more livable community for all. Too much of one thing is not good. So we look forward to be able to grow the community benefits for everyone in the neighborhood, young and old, and also to continue to generate additional investments. Today, we have been fortunate to leverage about $100 million in new investments in the community in a combination of infrastructure improvements, housing, and other programs that ASE has led along with our partners, and we look forward to doing more. Thank you.
Maria, thank you. That was terrific. Samantha, please share your great work.
Hi, everybody. I'm Samantha Meyer. As Ryan mentioned, I'm a project developer for Eden Housing. I'm going to talk a little bit about affordable housing today, some of the projects that we have done with Trails, and then do a bit of a case study or deep dive into one project I'm working on now. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background on Eden Housing. We are a nonprofit affordable housing developer based in California. Our mission is to create and sustain high quality affordable housing communities that advance equity and opportunity for all. We don't just build affordable housing, we also own and operate it and provide services to our tenants. We have about 165 properties across the state, provide over 11,000 homes, and we have 25,000 residents. Next slide, please. Just to give you a sense of where we work, we are based in the San Francisco Bay Area and also have offices in San Diego and Sacramento. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about what I mean when I say affordable housing. There are a lot of different types of affordable housing, and people use affordable housing to mean a lot of different things. Specifically today, I'll be talking about rental housing that is affordable to households earning 20 to 60% of the area median income. I'll talk a little bit on the next slide of what that means and what that looks like. Rents are set at 30% max of household income, so it's really ensuring that the units are affordable to the actual people who are living there. And we do work with a variety of populations. We work with families, seniors, and increasingly we're building more special needs, or what's often referred to as permanent supportive housing, and that's housing paired with services. It's typically targeted towards people exiting homelessness or at risk of homelessness, as well as people with disabilities, both mental and physical, and veterans. Next slide, please. So just to give you a little bit of a sense of who lives in our housing, affordable housing, it's really a range of the area median income, which is a metric that's set by HUD every year, and it's based on a specific location as well as the size of the household. So kind of at the bottom end of that range, we would see people who are typically exiting homelessness. They're making about $20,000 a year and would expect to pay about $480 for a studio apartment if there was one individual living there. On the higher end of that spectrum, we might be looking at a family of four, making about $80,000 a year and spending about $1,850 on a 2-bedroom apartment. Typical jobs for those households are maybe a public school teacher or a health aide. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense of kind of who we're serving. I know these numbers might seem really high for some folks who are across the country. As I'm sure you all know, housing costs are very high in California, particularly in the Bay Area. And so while these numbers may seem a little high, these are households that are on the lower end of the income spectrum in the area. Next slide, please. So at Eden, we have quite a few projects with Trails. We've built to date 5 projects that have Trails. We generally approach these really as public-private partnerships where Our primary goal is to build affordable housing and serve our residents, we do want to provide benefits to the community and really be community partners as well. And so we like to partner with the cities that we're working in to both build housing, but also address other goals and amplify those community benefits beyond, our mission. And focusing on building high quality service enhanced housing that has a lot of opportunities for residents to engage with the community and for the community to engage with our projects. Next slide, please. So I want to take you through kind of at a high level a couple of the projects we've built over the past 20 years or so. The first is a project in Petaluma, downtown River. This was built in 2005. It's a project for 81 units for families. And it's part of Petaluma's historic district, and it's along the river. And so the city had a master plan and had developed a downtown specific plan with a whole new vision for revitalizing downtown. And we were actually the first developer to come in and build a project. So we really set the standard for design. And then also were able to open up this area to both our residents and the community by building a river walk that made it so people could access and engage with the river. And this was part of a larger master development with both affordable and market rate components. And it was by all partnering together and leveraging the funding that was available that we were able to both build a lot of housing and at the same time provide all these community benefits like the trail along the river. Next slide, please. Another project we worked on back in 2012 is Emerald Vista. So this was a mixed income master development. We built 2 sites as part of the larger master development. The first was Carlo Court, which was 50 units for seniors, and the second, Wexford Way, is 130 family units. And this was originally an 11-acre, really low density site that the city wanted to come in and densify and also really make it a feature of the community. And so we built the projects that I mentioned, and then there were several other developers that built more middle income housing as well. But we did provide all these community services. So we created a village center, a childcare center, and 2 playgrounds, and then connected all of this to their regional trail network by leaving space on the site to develop a trail that runs along Alamo Creek. And we were very intentional about, there were several folks that were living there before the development. They were relocated during it, and all of them were welcomed back to live in the community after it had been developed. Next slide, please. And another project we worked on, this one's a bit more recent, and the funding mechanisms had changed in the state. We used to develop under redevelopment agencies, but are now more through individual local and state sources. And so this project is 80 senior units. We built it in 2018. The site has a pretty interesting and both tragic history. So these were former flower nurseries throughout the 1900s, that full century. But the owners were Japanese Americans who were interned during World War II, but they managed to hold on to the site and come back after World War II. And so when we developed this site, we were really sensitive to that history and engaged with the community around how can we honor the history of this site, and ended up building a new public park that really highlights that history, as well as a bicycle and pedestrian park that connects both the park and the Richmond Greenway, which you can see in the map on the left. And this was kind of one of our first projects in a new funding era. And we used funding both from the state's cap and trade program. So we got one of the first allocations from that, as well as a program called ASIC, or Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities, that leverages funding for projects that have some kind of green or sustainable benefit. So projects near transit or building trails or things like that. Next slide, please. So I want to talk next about a project that we're working on currently. So this is a project that's in pre-development. We're hoping to break ground early next year. Next slide. And so this project is planned to be 22 units of affordable housing. We'll have a mix of studios through 3-bedroom units, and are focusing on housing families, people who are exiting homelessness. We'll also have some veteran units, and then some units for people with physical and/or mental disabilities. And this site actually has a bit of an interesting history. So we acquired it through a law in California called the Surplus Lands Act, where Caltrans, who develops freeways and highways in the state, they own the land. They had acquired it and used eminent domain, and there were several single-family homes on the site, and they tore all that down in preparation to build a new freeway through the community. The community fought back in the 70s and blocked the development. And as a result, the parcel sat vacant since the 70s, basically. And when Caltrans decided they wanted to sell it, this law allows us to, it must be made available to public agencies first. And so we worked with the Housing Authority to acquire this site and put together this plan for these 72 units of housing. Next slide, please. So a big part of this project when the community got involved was that they really wanted to see us incorporate plans for this broader trail. So the San Lorenzo Creekway is a 5-mile bike and pedestrian path running through the East Bay that connects a lot of underserved communities that have had a lot of longstanding inequities in mobility, health, and safety. And so there's this plan for this 5-mile trail that's getting built slowly over quite a long period, and a 1/4 mile of it runs through our site. And so the community really wanted to see, and the county supervisor's office really wanted to see us build a portion of this trail. Next slide, please. And so this is a rendering of what the trail will look like. This is the back of the building. So the building's kind of a V or a C-shaped building, and there's a courtyard, and then we'll have this trail running through along the creek. And so it really integrates our housing with the trail and the broader community, which hasn't had access to this site since the 1970s. Next slide, please. And so we did a pretty extensive community engagement process, which, like I said at the beginning, we really want to have our projects be a partnership with the city or the county in this case, and make sure we're meeting not just the community that we're building's needs, but the broader community's needs, and that our projects can really be an asset. And so we went through this extensive community engagement process. From the very beginning, the county supervisor's office told us they would support this project as long as we incorporated a portion of the active transportation corridor, which is the San Lorenzo Creekway. But we also heard from the community, they wanted a smaller building footprint with lower heights along the main street. They wanted this site to stay kind of as a park and open space. And so we're leaving 60% of it as open space, which is about 4 acres. And then we also heard from them that they wanted a little park and trailhead to kind of welcome people onto the trail. And so in the top right of the after public input graphic, that little triangle you see, we're actually going to be building a park there. Next slide, please. And so this is our current site plan. So you can see the trail, which is the gray line through the middle of the site, runs along the creek. We're planting a ton of trees and leaving a lot of the old growth trees, and really working to integrate this, integrate our housing into the existing community and make this site an accessible, welcoming area to everyone, especially in an area where there really have been not a lot of opportunities to get into the outdoors, and not a lot of great connections between the parks that are available and between transit. So we're opening up this 6-acre site to the public and making the creek accessible for the first time in decades. And so this is the site that I mentioned, that little triangle a couple slides ago. So this is what it is currently. This is off a major thoroughfare in Hayward. And this is basically a commercial roofer rents a single family home and runs his business out of there. And then next slide, please. And then this is a rendering of what we have planned. So a little pocket park and a trailhead welcoming people into the site and along to the trail. And the trail will both, it's a 5-mile trail that runs from the bay through the East Bay to several parks, but then also makes connections to transit and to other regional trails as well. Next slide. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And I will turn it over back to Ryan.
Samantha, thank you so much. And Nick, please. Nick, I think you're muted.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nick Mitchell with CDCB, Come Dream, Come Build. We are located in deep South Texas. So if you look at a map of Texas, We are down right at the very tip, bordering the Gulf of Mexico and the country of Mexico. So that's where I'm coming from. Next slide, please. CDCB has been around since 1974. We were created originally to eliminate all of the 1,800 outdoor outhouses in the city of Brownsville, Texas, back in 1974. And since then, we have now become one of the top 3 nonprofit producers of affordable housing in the state of Texas. And we do almost everything that has to do with affordable housing development, both on the single family home ownership side, as well as rental housing development, ownership management. We're a lender, so we're a mortgage lender, as well as we have a policy shop that works with policy, and we run a school called Youth Build. So we're very involved in the community and been around a long time. Next slide, please. So one of the things that maybe because of the fact that I'm a cyclist and runner, and many of my staff are as well, we decided that we would become involved with the creation of the hike and bike trails that are really going up here in our county, and so looking for ways to do that. And so my conversation today is really going to be around ways that CDCs or community development corporations or groups like ours, like Samantha and Maria's as well, that how they can engage with you all as trail developers and planners and designers, to really include affordable housing and to be a part of that conversation and part of that time. So, some of those things I have listed here, and I'll go through each of them individually, but these are ways that my organization has engaged throughout the years, to be a part of this conversation and a part of the design and planning process. Next slide. So the first thing we did years ago was, one of the things we do, we are also a construction company. And so one of the first trails that was developed in the city of Brownsville was the Belden Trail. And CDCB volunteered its construction company to go ahead to be the GC on building this small 1 mile offshoot. And the main reason we decided to do that and be a part of this was because it was running through one of the poorest parts of town. And we felt very strongly that, along with the more affluent parts of town, of which there aren't many in Brownsville, since we're the poorest city in the United States, but those that were getting the trail seemed to be more affluent, parts of town. And we wanted to ensure that this same thing was possible for low-income communities. So we decided to be the builder on this, didn't take any profit for doing it, and just paid for the work, as well as we brought in our nonprofit partner design firm, Building Community Workshop, or we call them BC. BC was the designer on this project, and they're a community engaged design firm. So working with the community to design this through an old abandoned rail line, and going back to the mid 1800s, and working with the community to design this trail through their community to be utilized and cared for. Next slide. The other way that we got engaged with it is this: we spent money. To tell you the truth, we have donated and will continue to donate bicycles to the city of Brownsville that are used to rent, and really just folks who don't have a bike that can utilize that on the trails and in different community activities. We wanted to make sure that low-income folks had the ability to participate with those who do have a bike. And so along with some other sponsors, we supply bikes every couple of years to the city of Brownsville to keep this up. But this is a way for us to stay engaged with this. Next slide. The biggest way, and this is really thanks to Ryan and the folks at Rails-to-Trails, we believe that community development is more than just the house. It's more than just, you know, whether you're renting or buying a home, but it's about the entire community. And trails have such a wonderful impact on a community, whether it be an economic impact for the positive, bringing in tourism, or health benefits, or just getting people out onto the street, talking to each other and being neighbors. So that's true community development. Our county and 9 municipalities, 10 municipalities now, had joined together some years ago to create the Karakata Trails Network, which is a 428 mile hike and bike paddling trail that is being developed through our county. You know, as Maria said, slowly, and then some, or Samantha said slowly in some cases, but in others that are moving right along. And RTC at one point was the project manager for this, and in true community-led behavior, RTC then asked with the group for CDCB to take over project management of this to help shepherd this group of municipalities to create the continued development of the Karakata Trails. So we have a staff person here who works with us, who is a planner, works at BC Workshop and CDCB, to be that project manager and help to shepherd this moving forward. So this is a large part of what we do to help ensure that these sections of the trails are built, maintained, and supported by both the community as well as the community leaders. Next slide. So the majority of affordable housing in the United States is not subsidized housing. A lot of the housing that Samantha talked about, that Maria talked about, and that I will talk about in later slides, are all subsidized by some sort of government investment, whether or private foundation investment, or whatever be the case. But the majority of it is not subsidized in what we call naturally occurring affordable housing, or NOAA. And so these are just places where low-income people live. And we are there to always encourage our community to build trails through these neighborhoods. So, in Brownsville, we've been able to do that with the creation of the Belden Trail, and the new West Rail Trail that is going in here in Brownsville, under construction right now. This is a trail that runs through those neighborhoods. And so to engage this population is very important. It brings support for the trail system and the trail network. And does all the positive things, but ensures that the entire community can be a part of it. And these are just some pictures of just regular neighborhoods, low-income neighborhoods where people live, but a trail running through them that is used and taken care of. The first day on the Belden Trails, we walked through it. I was walking with the city commissioner, and a lady came out of her house, and we were in a very low-income community. This woman said to me, "Hey, that street light is out over the park over there. How do I get it? Can you get somebody over here to change it?" And I said, "Well, no, but you can." And I gave her the number to the Public Utilities District of the city and said, "Call them and take care of that." And apparently she did, because I saw her a couple of weeks later when I was out there actually on my bike myself. And she wanted to tell me that she had called the Public Utility Board, and they came and they changed the light, and she didn't know if she could ever do that before. So trails also help to empower people to be a part of their community and understand that taking care of their community, and this is a part of their community to take care of. So it's very exciting, but ensuring that they go through there. And then the other part of what we do is encourage other developers to build on the trail. Not all affordable housing is built by CDCB. The Housing Authority builds quite a bit of affordable housing in our communities, as well as private developers that are developing subsidized affordable housing. So here you've got two examples. One is, it's called Trail Village, and it's right on the trail. Housing Authority never would even connected this to the trail until their neighbors said, "Hey, we want to be a part of that. It's right there. We can see it." And so it's been connected to that. And they were actually able to get a bike share station right next to the entrance to that, as you see there. And then other developers developing in multiple locations on the trail. So we help to encourage that. We kind of like to say that we lead, by example, and so we do it and hope that others do it as well. Next slide. And then, nope, back one. There you go. And so we also build housing on trails, along with building trails. So one unit that we just finished here is a 3-bedroom, what we call the Levy Street Flats. It's three apartments in this historic old house here in West Brownsville. We bought that because it is right next to the trail, and we rented it up, and we asked folks why they moved there, and one of the reasons that they wanted to live there was not just because they needed a place to live, but because it was close to the trail. And then our biggest project going on right now is Palo Alto Groves. Palo Alto Groves is a 674 single family mixed income community. So market rate for sale units, as well as subsidized for sale units, along with a charter school, the IDEA school there, as well as a few more, and then there'll be another 400 affordable casitas or cottages that we will develop for rental in those open areas. But in this, we're building 5 miles of hike and bike trails that connect to 2 different parks that are within the neighborhood, as well as we bought the property right next to the Brownsville Sports Park, which is a $30 million sports park that was recently built about 5-6 years ago, which the Karakata Trails system does run through there. So we're connecting to that. So we're out searching for property and buying property that are on trails, so that we can do that. So community development, as you guys are learning through this series, which my hats off to Ryan and his team in drawing this connection together, because it is so very important. But community development is not just about the house. It's about the entire community. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all our panelists. So I want to get right into some Q&A. Just a few things to note. This is the second webinar in the series. We will have a third on June 8th. And then we'll hear from advocates, funders, public agencies on policies, funding programs to co-locate affordable housing and trails. And in fact, Samantha mentioned California's Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities program. We'll have someone leading that effort from California as part of that panel. We have also created a dedicated webpage on trail networks and housing stability. Please visit that with many of these resources. And of course, it's something we'd love to hear now, and absolutely as we wrap the series up and look to see how else we can be helpful, is we love to hear of examples of trail networks working on housing stability, as well as just what other resources would be helpful to anyone here in the network. Next slide. So let's get right into questions with the time that we have left. And Nick said there at the end that community development is not just about the house. We heard from everyone different forms of talking about that they focus on entire communities, that each of these groups is a housing organization, but thinks much more broadly. First question I'd like to ask you all is, I hear often from people in the housing, or in the Trails Network, concerns about what do we do about housing values and housing stability. But it's very complicated. Building trails is complicated, building housing is complicated. Would love to hear from you all. How do you approach partnerships? What do you see as good reciprocal partnerships, especially where you've done trails? And then secondly, where do you look to actually locate that housing? Nick, at the end, you mentioned you're on the search for properties. But of course, a lot goes into where a place gets funded and built. And we'd love to hear more specifically, when you're talking to your group, what are you looking for in terms of the place you'd ultimately want to locate that housing? And why don't we start with Samantha?
Yeah, so I mean, we do a variety of things in terms of how we decide where we're going to locate our housing. A lot is in response to RFPs and RFQs from local and statewide entities. We also do a fair amount of searching on our own for properties that we want to purchase. But I think when we're evaluating those sites, we really look to, is this going to be a location where we're going to have support either from the elected officials and or the community, and make sure that it's going to be feasible to actually get these sites built. And then, like I mentioned, we really do want to understand the communities that we're building in, and that's why we do an extensive community engagement process. And that's how we often end up understanding that trails or building a portion of a trail or tying into that is what the community wants, and that's where we can show up and help. And so to the extent possible, we always do that and want to partner with both the community and the public agencies in the area.
Maria, next, what would you add from your perspective?
For us, because we work in a very dense urban environment, opportunities for land are very few and hard to come by. The land that is available is very expensive. So one of the things that we do is we partner with the Philadelphia Land Bank and also with the Philadelphia Housing Authority to have access to free land for the development of affordable housing, whether it's homeownership or rental. And that really helps us to really lower the cost of the units that we are putting online. And we pass on those savings, of course, to our residents, especially in the homeownership housing. So for us, it's very critical to be able to be very nimble as to how we identify properties, whether it's vacant or vacant structures or vacant land, and also work with those partners to be able to have access to those resources fairly quickly, because as I mentioned, there's neighborhoods very close to us that are gentrifying, so the competition is very stiff. Maybe we look to those public sources to be able to work with them to get access to the land.
I think with us, we just try to, well, I mean, I guess we're kind of lucky because we're project managing the Karakata Trails project. So we know the inside game, right? But that's the point, is that invite community development corporations to be on the inside, right? And so that they're part of the planning process, so that they can see the future plans, they can see where the land is going. I mean, right now we're looking at a piece of the Karakata Trails that's going through what we call the Bahia Grande, and we know exactly how it shifted and how it moved, and if there's places where we can put housing on it or not, but we know that up front. So if including affordable housing, which I hope it is part of trail designers and planners' future, then invite those who build it to be a part of your plan. So they're not second guessing you and they're not having to beg you for information, but they're there at the table. And that's how we've been able to do what we do, is that we're at the table with them and we understand, and we have taken and put ourselves in some type of leadership, and have gained the trust of the public sector elected officials that, hey, they're not going to do something bad. They're actually going to improve our communities.
Invite them in early. And I think the examples we see here is not only does that help with housing stability, it just makes for a much more integrated approach to trails coming into communities. Well said. We'd love to hear just experience your residents have had being close to trails. What has it meant for them? Many of you talked about ways that you support your residents. Have you had any kind of programming or services that have really taken advantage of the location of your trails?
We have, I'll jump in there real quick. We actually, with the University of Texas, UT Health, we're managing a grant alongside them with doing outdoor activities on the trail. So we have stargazing on the trail. So folks can come and that we set up telescopes, and we have some professional, not me, there showing folks to look at the stars, or yoga on the trailheads, right? I mean, so other than just the hike and bike and run and all that kind of stuff, but getting people outside in the community, so we're looking for grant money, looking for investment money to be able to activate them in other ways besides what would traditionally be the way, so that people know that they're there and that they are for them, and as well as, I really don't allow pictures of people in spandex on our trails. Right, that is published. Right, I like good old fashioned people, that are just walking along and trying to drag some kids along with them. but it's making people feel more comfortable that the trail belongs to them. It's not just for the, you know, the fast bikes and fast runners, right? It's for everybody. And just that image helps.
Well, and that certainly applies to engaging with residents in affordable housing. I think that applies to any form of just being more equitable and representative with trail use. Maria, Samantha, anything you'd add as to how your residents have engaged or benefited?
Sure. I think initially when we first built our first trail, the residents in our community felt like, oh, here comes gentrification. You know, they're making the area all beautiful. They're going to move us out. You know, what are we going to do? So I think one of the things that we did, of course, we're a community-based organization. We've been serving that community for many years. We had to really engage with residents and really involve them in our plans and really have conversations with them and assure them that we were building this for them because they were very much deserving, like anybody else in Philadelphia. So we really work very consistently and strategically to engage residents as we're developing, like, for example, the trail yard, the rail yard, and how we're building this other park that we're calling Willow Park. So we're very much engaged. And also we continue with our affordable housing initiative so that they see that we are continuing in the mission of the organization and they are not going to be displaced, and why we are really advancing a lot of our homeownership building strategies so that they're able to benefit long-term. And if they so choose to move out and maybe their children stay behind, they benefit from those investments. So it was, you know, a tense conversation at the beginning, but I think we put them at ease. And also by demonstrating to them that it was for them, I think that really won them over.
Yeah, and for us, I mean, our properties now have these as a resource right on site to be able to engage our residents on the trail. I can speak a little bit to what we've done at Ruby Street Apartments, which, you know, it's not yet built, but we've already been doing a fair amount to engage the surrounding community. Because it is along the creek, unfortunately, that creek is actually an area where people do a lot of dumping. There's a lot of illegal dumping that happens around there. So we've done an annual creek cleanup, and my vision long-term is that we can engage people in biking from BART, which is our local rail, and get people using the trail to get to the site and do these on-site cleanups. And we also have a couple people who are currently, there are some people who are have tents up on the site right now because it is a large vacant site. And so we've been working with local homeless orgs to engage those folks and get them services, and then also partner with them to actually do cleanups on site and help them feel like this is their space too, and that ultimately we'll be building housing for folks like them.
Great, thank you, Samantha. So we're almost at time. Like webinar one, we had more questions than we had time, and I think more than we can absorb all in the moment, which is why we record these. Let me just go quickly to each of you. We had a number of questions on funding, and that will be covered some in the next webinar. For any of you though, were there funding sources that you found that were beneficial both for the work you're doing in housing, but also just with providing amenities, trails, other things? Anything in your community that we'd want to make sure we put some emphasis on when we gather again?
As far as us building trails in our housing, it is, you know, we've engaged a lot more with health foundations now, and bringing, because health metrics in low-income populations unfortunately are low. And so being able to bring active community things to our community, to our developments, has really increased our activity with health foundations and healthcare investors to build both the housing and the trail work.
So for us, we've taken advantage of a special program in Pennsylvania, which is called the Neighborhood Preservation Program, or rather partnership program, where we're able to access state tax credit and then sell them to local businesses, and they can then buy the tax credits and get the incentive on their state returns, and we use those funds to be able to build a trail. Many dedicated resources, of course. Rails-to-Trails have been very helpful, along with the William Penn Foundation. But then the tax credit program has been really a great incentive for us to be able to have the resources to do that.
And for us at Eden, I mean, we've leveraged a number of sources in order to get these trails built. It used to be that it really happened through redevelopment agencies, but those were dissolved. So now we do look to programs like ASIC and the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG. And then we also are able to roll some of these costs into the larger program budget and use things like tax credits and other state and local sources to fund these trails as part of the larger project.
But we also stand out on the corner and take donations in our hat. You know, I mean, we'll do whatever it takes to get the money for these projects.
Well, that's probably everyone viewing this webinar as well. Welcome to the nonprofit world, I guess. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Nick. It was great to have you. And I'd return to what Nick said before, which is if you want to be proactive around addressing housing stability, where you're developing trails in your community, invite people in, invite great folks like Maria, Samantha, and Nick to be part of that conversation. It'll just make for a stronger trail network and more access and opportunity. Panelists, thank you all so much for joining us. More so, thanks for the great work that you do in your communities.